5-4 sounding much better than 4-5 coming off a win against Notre Dame at home. We got Jason Priester here from allclemsontigers.com. Jason, we always appreciate you stopping by. And of course, Dabo Swinney, of course, and his conversations with fans being at the forefront of everybody's talking points last week. What's his name? Tyler from Spartanburg. Was that his name? He became like a national phenom after that phone call, but I don't know if old Tyler's going to call back this week.
Yeah, that was actually last night. Those shows are on Monday night, and we got a taped version last night because Clemson had a basketball game. So I'm not real sure how that would work with a taped version because I don't live up there, so I don't listen to it. I have a feeling that Dabo was kind of primed and ready to, go scorched earth Monday night, no matter what. Because we found out Saturday after the game that he had kind of already started in on that road during practice or at the facility on Monday. I'm not sure they practice on Mondays, but with whatever they do on Mondays, Xavier Thomas kind of alluded to it after the game Saturday. That he had put everybody in the building on notice. All the way to the guys that cut the grass out there. That he was, he was looking at everybody. So I think it was a lively weekend, Clemson. I know the phone call gets a lot of attention, and some people are crediting that for firing Dabo up, but I think he was already fired up. Somebody might have felt his wrath Monday night, no matter what got said.
Well, Jason, Notre Dame had a chance to win the game. They were down only by a score with a couple minutes left, and they actually had the two shots to mount a game-time drive because they had the ball with about 2 minutes left, and Hartman throws the pick. But then Phil Mafah gives it right back. So then they've got another shot, but the defense shuts them down again. But it never had that feel to me once Jeremiah Trotter had that pick six that Clemson was really in doubt in this one. They really were the better team on the field.
Yeah, I actually picked Clemson to win this game.
I did too.
I think
I didn't think I was going to, but when it came down to it, I did.
I think there were three of us on the beat that picked Clemson to win this week, and I was one of them. And I just had a feeling that defense was wanting to atone for what happened in South Bend last year. And after they gave up the two long runs on the opening drive, man, they just dominated that game. They controlled the line of scrimmage. The defensive line was just as disruptive as I've seen it all season long, and they created havoc. And Sam Hartman was never able to get real comfortable. He kind of, outside of last year's performance there in Winston-Salem when he was with Wake Forest, he kind of looked like what Sam Hartman's always looked like against Clemson, average. And he's not an average quarterback. He's an extremely good quarterback. Clemson has a way of making him look average a lot of the time. I just credit to that defense, but more so credit to that offensive line. I kind of thought the offense would do just enough to win, but man, that offensive line, those coaches decided to lean on the zone, the inside zone, something that's been a staple of Clemson's offense for years. Since Garrett Riley's been there, they've run a lot more counters and traps with offensive linemen pulling and stuff. And I have not went back and watched the replay, but watching it live, I don't recall one offensive lineman pulling at all game long. They just went hat on a hat, strictly back to a zone blocking scheme, and it worked. They controlled the line of scrimmage on that side of the ball too, and Phil Mafah was the biggest benefactor, 180 plus yards. He took full advantage of the opportunity that he had with Will Shipley being out, and I think he has earned himself a lot more carries going into this week against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and because of the running back situation and wanting to limit Cade Klubnik and not having to throw the burden of the offense on his shoulders, it wasn't necessarily from a standpoint of Shipley being out, who's leading the ACC in total yardage, if you put it all together with the special teams and everything involved. Not the most opportune time to do that, but they still went ahead and put it on Mafah. And 36 carries has to be way over anything he's ever done there. But I know that you've been a Phil Mafah fan for a long time.
Yeah, I've always, no, not a knock on Will Shipley because I think he's a fine running back. He's a great running back. But I've always thought Phil Mafah was, let's say the more well-rounded back, the more complete back. Um, Shipley can help you in a lot of ways. I just, I've just thought Mafah was more of the total package ever since they came out of high school. Me and you've talked about him a lot, but and he finally got he finally had the ability to show it Saturday. He's yet to be the featured back since he's been in Clemson. Shipley's kind of been more in that role, and I know they split carries, and it's kind of more like 1A and 1B, but Shipley's always been 1A and Mafah's always been 1B. And listening to Dabo Swinney talk today, it kind of sounds like they're going to keep rolling with Mafah. He said he's absolutely earned the opportunity to see if he can keep the hot hand. But I think Will Shipley, I fully expect he'll be back this week. He was limited in practice yesterday. He's on his way back. So maybe we see those roles reversed, and it's now that Mafah's in that 1A role and Shipley's in that 1B role. But again, for me, it goes back to that offensive line, man. Those running backs, while I have personally said that they looked uninspired at times over the last month, a lot of that might be due to the offensive line and the lack of any running lanes that were being created over the past 4 games. It was your backs are only as good as the guys blocking in front of them most of the time. You like to see them be able to create something out of nothing here and there, but when you always have when it's nothing you're working with every single time, man, it's hard to create much out of that.
Yeah, Jason Priester here to break down some Clemson football for us with Georgia Tech straight ahead in Death Valley. And of course, you can catch Jason there at allclemsontigers.com. This is a rivalry that goes way back against Georgia Tech. If you would have told people, Jason, at the beginning of the year that actually there would be one of these two teams that still have a chance to get to the ACC championship game, this Georgia Tech team, they are not impressive if you watch them play, but they pull out that miracle Miami game. They had a game early in the year against Louisville that they played extremely close against a Louisville team. So this is going to be Florida State in Louisville. Florida State's in. Louisville's only got one loss, and I'm about to do a breakdown actually on the conference race and what the scenarios are. But Louisville, fortunately for them, the game that they lost was kind of inexplicable, but it was to Pitt. So they've got the tiebreaker against everybody else because they haven't lost to those other teams. But Georgia Tech, if they can create some kind of 3-way tie or 4-way tie, they have a chance if they win out because they're 4-2 in the conference.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that I saw Clemson open up as a 15-point favorite, yesterday or Sunday. I thought it was going to be a little bit lower than that because, granted, this Georgia Tech team, they're not great, they're not elite, but man, they just find ways to win. And that quarterback's dangerous, man. He can make plays. He can beat you in a lot of different ways. He's really good. That new coach they've got there, he's done a lot of good things since taking over. I like the direction that program's headed, since he's took over. But they're a dangerous team, man, and this Clemson team can't afford to overlook anybody at this point.
Yeah. Do you have any concern that that Notre Dame effort was just okay? It's Notre Dame, and we've taken this backlash of criticism, so the group got together for 1 week, or do you think they're going to be able to sustain this through the rest of the season?
We'll see. I think that's a good question. I don't think anybody's mailed it in or anything like that. I think they feel like they still, got a lot of pride to play for and things like that. And they'd like to play in the best postseason game they possibly could at this point. So I think they're still going, I think you still got guys out there giving it their all. And, let's not forget, Clemson was down about 10 starters Saturday. They were down a bunch of guys, 3 guys in the secondary. Will Shipley was out. Antonio Williams is out. They were missing 2 starting offensive linemen. The list goes on. And they're going to be banged up still this week, especially in that secondary. And some young guys stepped up, and they're going to have to step up again this week. But I think if Clemson can continue to win the turnover margin, and they flirted with disaster last week. They put a couple on the ground. They were fortunate to pounce on themselves that Notre Dame wasn't able to recover. So that's still something they've got to get cleaned up because they're still putting the ball on the ground at a very high clip. And then obviously the game-changing and disastrous interceptions. The Klubnik had another one. When it goes right off the hands of Bo Collins, a catch he should make. He had a couple big catches before that. But you got to make that catch. But instead, it bounces off his hands and right into a Notre Dame defender, and then it's returned. And Clemson just can't seem to avoid those type of plays. And finally, for once, they were able to overcome them instead of succumb to them. And I kind of think that's who they are this year, and they'll have to find a way to overcome it again this weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned Audric Estime had two big runs on the first drive, I think 25 and 23 yards. And Clemson, holds tight in the red zone. They force a field goal, and then that turned out to be kind of a theme there. Notre Dame's first three trips, they got deep into Clemson's end of the field. And that one drive, they had a first and goal after the one little swing pass out to Estime, and he stepped out of bounds, and they knocked him out of bounds around the 2-yard line. They had a first and goal at the 2. And those first three Notre Dame drives that were pretty successful drives, Clemson really got it together there in the red zone to force field goals.
Yeah, they bowed up in the red zone. It was a really good effort, particularly in the red zone. They held them to field goals on all three of those drives. Just can't say enough about that defensive effort. Jeremiah Trotter, I hadn't mentioned him, man. Probably his argument. You can make the argument his best game as a Clemson Tiger, man. He was just all over the field. He was named, I think, the National Linebacker of the Week today. But just an outstanding effort from those guys. They limited that running game. Again, like you said, he had 45, 50 yards on those two runs on that opening drive, and then he only finished with 86, I think, for the game, or 88 or something like that. I can't remember a specific number, but they were just fantastic against the run, man. They've been good against the run all season long, outside of that fourth quarter against Miami, and they were even better than they have been this weekend. Kind of gave you vibes from some of those Brent Venables defenses, maybe not quite as aggressive, but close to being as effective.
And Estime's been ranked one of the top 2 backs in the nation in NFL mock drafts, so he's no joke.
And Estime killed him last year. He just killed him last year.
Absolutely. Jason Priester here, breaking down the Tigers taking on Georgia Tech, annual rivalry game in Death Valley. All right, Jason, we appreciate you stopping by, breaking things down for us.
Always a pleasure, my friend.